Chapter 5, The Vanishing. The ritual was incomplete. Clara had followed her grandmother's instructions precisely: 13 candles, 13 prayers, the protective runes drawn in salt. But something was missing. She felt at the moment the final candle flickered out. The air didn't clear. The silence didn't lift. Instead, the chapel grew colder, darker, as if the shadows themselves were watching. She stayed the night in the chapel, wrapped in her coat, the bone bell resting beside her. Sleep came in fragments, shallow, restless, haunted by whispers. She dreamed of children standing in the ash pit, their eyes hollow, their mouths stitched shut. They reached for her, but she couldn't move. She couldn't speak. She couldn't scream. At dawn, she returned to the village. Something was wrong. The streets were empty. Doors hung open. Windows were shattered. Smoke rose from chimneys, but no one stirred. Clara walked slowly, calling out names she remembered: Mrs. Kowalska, Pyotr, Father Marek. But no one answered. She reached the town square and found a single figure standing beneath the statue of Saint Florian. A child. He was barefoot, his clothes torn, his face streaked with ash. He looked at Clara with wide, unblinking eyes. "They're gone," he said. Clara knelt beside him. "Who's gone?" "Everyone." She tried to comfort him, but he pulled away. They heard the bell. They followed it. Clara's heart sank. She looked toward the forest. The trees swayed unnaturally, as if something was moving through them. The 13th bell hadn't been silenced. It had been awakened. She ran to Father Marek's house. It was empty. His study had been ransacked, papers scattered across the floor. She found a torn page from an old book, half burned but still legible. The 13th bell does not summon protection. It summons passage. It opens the veil. Clara understood now. The bell wasn't meant to keep evil out. It was meant to let something in, or let something out. She returned to the chapel and descended into the cellar. The trapdoor was open. The pit of ash was deeper than before. The bones had shifted. The runes on the walls had faded. And in the center of the pit stood a figure. The faceless woman. She was taller now, her veil darker, her presence heavier. She didn't speak. She simply raised her hand and pointed at Clara. "You broke the seal," a voice whispered, not from the woman, but from the walls, the air, the ash itself. "You must finish the rite." Clara stepped forward, trembling. "What rite?" The voice answered, 13 must vanish. 13 must return." She realized the ritual wasn't about prayers. It was about balance. 13 villagers had sealed the bell. 13 souls had to be taken to restore the seal. Her grandmother had delayed it, but Clara had reopened the door. She ran from the cellar, the whispers chasing her. Outside, the forest loomed. She saw figures moving between the trees, villagers, children, shadows. They were walking toward the clearing, toward the stone arch. She followed them. The forest was alive with sound now, the bell ringing, the trees groaning, the earth trembling. The stone arch glowed faintly, the runes pulsing like a heartbeat. The villagers stood in a circle, their eyes blank, their mouths open in silent song. The faceless woman appeared at the center. She held the bone bell high. Clara stepped into the circle. The woman turned to her. "You are the 13th. Clara understood. Her grandmother had escaped the ritual. She had passed the burden to Clara. And now, Clara had to choose: sacrifice herself to seal the bell, or let the village vanish forever. She took the bell from the woman's hand. It was cold. Heavy. Final. She rang it once. The villagers collapsed. She rang it twice. The forest stilled. She rang it a third time. And everything went dark. Chapter 6, The Hollow Saint. Clara awoke in darkness. Not the kind of darkness that comes with night, but something deeper, a void, thick and unmoving. She couldn't tell if her eyes were open or closed. The air was still, yet heavy, pressing against her skin like wet cloth. She tried to move, but her limbs felt distant, as if they belonged to someone else. Then she heard it. The bell. A single, low chime that echoed through the void. It wasn't loud, but it was everywhere, inside her ears, her chest, her bones. It rang again. And again. 13 times. With each chime, the darkness shifted. Shapes emerged, vague, flickering outlines of people. Children. Villagers. They stood in silence, their faces blank, their eyes hollow. Clara recognized some of them. The boy from the square. Father Merrick. Even her grandmother, younger, her hair braided, her eyes filled with fear. They didn't speak. They simply watched. Then the void cracked. A seam of light split the darkness, revealing a vast chamber carved from bone and ash. At its center stood a statue, tall, faceless, cloaked in black. It held a bell in one hand and a book in the other. The runes etched into its surface pulsed faintly, like veins beneath skin. Clara stepped forward, drawn by a force she couldn't resist. The statue radiated power, but it wasn't divine. It was ancient. Primal. Wrong. She reached out and touched the book. It opened. The pages were blank at first. Then words began to appear, written in blood-red ink. The Hollow Saint was never a protector. It was a gatekeeper. A collector. A judge. 13 souls sealed the veil. 13 must return to keep it closed. You are the last. Clara's breath caught. She looked around. The villagers were fading, dissolving into ash. Her grandmother remained, watching her with sorrowful eyes. You were never meant to bear this, her voice echoed. Clara turned to the statue. What are you? The Hollow Saint raised its bell and rang at once. The chamber trembled. Images flooded Clara's mind, rituals performed in secret, children offered to the forest, bells forged from bone and silence. She saw the original 13, villagers desperate to survive the war, willing to sacrifice anything. She saw the creation of the 13th bell, the sealing of the pit, the oath sworn in blood. And she saw the price. The Hollow Saint was not evil. It was balance. It did not punish. It collected. It ensured the veil between worlds remained intact, and it demanded payment. Clara understood now. Her grandmother had delayed the payment. Had hidden the truth. But the debt remained. And Clara had reopened the account. You must choose, the saint whispered. Seal the veil, and remain. Or flee, and let the world bleed. Clara looked at the bell in her hand. It was warm now, pulsing like a heart. She thought of the village. The children. The forest. The silence. She thought of her grandmother. She stepped into the circle of runes. She rang the bell. Once. Twice. 13 times. The chamber exploded in light.